Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Minecraft modding tutorial for version 1.19. In this tutorial we're going to be covering a natural entity spawning, so we can get our entities spawning naturally in the world. So let's just go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to want to come ahead and do is come into our events package, and inside of mod common events, if you haven't already created this, you're going to need this class. All you need is just this class header and the annotation up here, and we will go through the next thing you need. So you will need an @subscribe event. Actually, you will already have this class because you have the entity attributes. Also, you don't need a subscribe event. I don't know what I'm on about. So if you come into here, you should have a common setup event, and you'll need to include the work. If you don't already have this, you just need to create it how I have it now. And we can just do spawn placements dot register, and we're going to register our entity type. So that's just entity init dot example dot get, and then we need the type. So this will be basically how it should spawn. So whether it should spawn sort of in the air or on the ground or in water. So to define that, we do spawn placements dot type dot, and then you can do the type. So my entity, I just want to spawn on the ground, fairly simple. And then we also need how it should spawn sort of in the height map. So we can say height map dot types, and here you can define the essentially the height map that it will use to determine where to spawn. So generally you're just going to want to use world surface, but there's also ocean floor, and there's motion blocking and motion blocking no leaves. But generally you're going to stick to ocean floor and world surface. If it's a flying entity, then you'll maybe use motion blocking, or if you don't want it to spawn in leaves and fly, then you'd use no leaves. So we'll just stick with world surface since we're using on ground. That makes the most sense. And then we need to define a predicate for how it should spawn, so the particular conditions that it requires. For example, hostile entities will generally require a light level of less than 7, whereas other entities may require higher Y levels. Additionally, you can also define sort of what blocks it could spawn on and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do example entity, and we're just going to can spawn, and this is a method we're going to want to go ahead and create. So let's come into here, okay, and we're going to want a public static boolean can spawn. Now this is going to need some parameters, so this will first need our entity type, and that will be of example entity, and this will just be the entity type. And then we're going to want a level accessor, and this is just the level. And then we're going to have the mob spawn type, which is just the spawn type. And then we're going to have the block pos position, so this is the position that it can validate. And then we're going to have a random, so random. Okay, and this is meant to be the level, not the level accessor. And from there you can do whatever checks you want to do. Now since I'm using an animal, there is a great method I can already use, and this is just check animal spawn rules. But you'll see there also is check mob spawn rules, and I think if you're extending monster, there should be something like check monster spawn rules. But we can just do return check animal spawn rules, and then just pass in the particular things that it wants. So you'll see that it wants the entity type, it wants the level, it wants the spawn type, it wants the pos, and it wants the random. And is that not right? Am I missing? Oh, this needs to be a random source, of course. Okay, And then you can also, if you want to, you can use that and do additional checks. So you could also say and for example, you could say pos.y is greater than 70, right? And that will say it can only be on that sort of block, or that sort of y level. You could also additionally say and level.get block state at pos.is block init dot advanced block. You could do something like that as well, if you want it to only spawn on your block. Or additionally, you could use vanilla blocks, of course, that's probably more likely. So you could say is blocks dot sand maybe, but I'm going to yeet that one because I don't want to have any additional checks. I want to be able to find this entity fairly easily, so that's the plan. Okay, and that's actually all you need. So you'll see if you come into here, that error is now gone, and that is all the code we need for this whole entire tutorial. So let's just close these. However, you may be thinking, how do we define like the amount there will be, or the spawn sizes, or where they will spawn? How do we define that? So to define something like that, we need to use a biome modifier, and this is something we talked about in the ore generation tutorial, but we're going to need another one. So let's come into data and tutorial mod, and inside of here you will need a folder called forge, and then inside of that you'll need a separate folder called forge_modifier. Now note, this is inside of data.yourModID. So inside of there you have a forge, and inside of that you have a biome modifier. You just need to make sure those are all separate folders, not a merged folder. And inside of here you can just make your modifier. So what we'll do is we'll create a new file, and I'd like to just call this the name of my entity to keep it simple. So example_nc.json, and inside of here you can just do your placement modifier, right? Your biome modifier. So first we need to specify the type, and this will be forge :add_spawns, and then we need to specify the biomes that it will spawn in. So we can say biomes, and you can give a list of biomes, or you can just give a singular biome ID, or you can give a biome tag. So I'm going to be using a tag, and I'm just going to say Minecraft:is_overworld, just to keep it fairly simple. That obviously works with the never at the end. This is basically the same with ores so far. Then we're also going to need to specify the actual spawner, and this is the data that it will use. So it's spawners, okay, and here we can specify the type. So this will be the entity type that you want to spawn, and my entity type is obviously tutorial mod example_entity, and then the weight. So this is basically the like how often it will spawn, right? So I don't know if it's actually associated with a specific like amount per chunk. I'm not exactly sure exactly what it references. It's best to just play around with this value, but essentially lower the value the less there will be. I'm going to give it like 75 maybe. That needs to just be an integer, not a string. And then we can define a min count. So say I want to be at least 1 per group maybe, and maybe a max count of I don't know, 7. And you can mess around with those values however you want them to be. And that should be pretty much it. So we should now be able to go ahead and run the game, and we should see that it works. So I will see you in the game. Alright, here we are in the game. So if we go ahead and try and find some new chunks, now we need to make sure we are above Y70, but that should be fairly simple with the new system of world generation, since most terrain is now above 70. And hopefully with a little bit of exploring, they shouldn't be too rare. They may be quite rare though, so I may have to speed this up if that is the case. Alright everybody, so I have been spending the last, God knows how long, like 30 minutes trying to figure out why the hell my entity was not spawning. And I changed around the values, I changed the spawning to make sure, just to remove the above Y check. I went through loads of debugging to try and fix IntelliJ, and I finally think I figured it out. Haven't tested it yet, but this is the official test now. So hopefully it should work this time. Essentially, the issue I had was that I was silly, and yes, it does work. And basically, in the entity JSON, I put example underscore entity. However, because I was being stupid, that wasn't my entity name. My entity name was example, and I didn't realize that. I thought I named it example entity, but apparently I didn't. So in theory, we should be able to find the entity around here somewhere. Because I can see the positions being printed in my console. I don't, however, see any entities. There's one. Yep, here they are. So there's one there, and there's one over here, there's one here. Yep, there you go. So that was the issue. Just note, you might also have that issue. It doesn't tell you anything in the log. So, you know, Forge does not tell you. It just spawns it as a pig. So you would never know, essentially.
What the hell is this?
So you just double check that you got that JSON right. You might also want to rename. I'm probably going to rename my entity to example underscore entity, because otherwise it's just really jank, isn't it? So yeah, I hope you guys did find this tutorial useful. If you did, please do be sure to smash your face into that like button and subscribe. If you really found it useful, then please do be sure to share it around. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Goodbye.